Hey guys, hello and welcome to episode 12 of the Forward Progress Football Podcast. I'm your host, Zach Barty, and today we're going to be starting my Who Are They series, where I'm going to go team by team, position by position, and give you just a little overview of the roster and my thoughts and my questions heading into this upcoming season. So, let's kick things off right away with the Dallas Cowboys. Alright, so I'm going to be going division by division. That means we're starting with the NFC East and the Dallas Cowboys. So, little bug, sorry. Starting off with the quarterback position. You got Dak Prescott as the starter. Cooper Rush, Will Grier, and Ben DiNucci will be fighting for quarterback spot 2 and 3. With Dak Prescott, will he cement himself as like this tier 2 quarterback? Seems like in back-to-back years, he flirted with being like this top 5 tier 2 quarterback before getting injured. And last year, when he did come back from that injury, he wasn't really able to establish himself there and kind of fell into this tier 3, top 10-ish sort of quarterback. So which Dak do we see? Do we see the early season Dak or the late season Dak? And who will win the number 2 battle between these other 3? And will they end up keeping 3 quarterbacks on their roster? Look forwards to that. For running backs, they have Ezekiel Elliott, Tony Pollard, Rico Dowdle, probably Dowdle, Jaquan Hardy, Ryan Nall, and Nick Ralston. When it comes to the running backs, does Zeke continue to hold Pollard back and establish himself as a top 10 back again, or even top 5 as he was early in his first year or two? Does Tony Pollard, does he get more snaps? Can he make Zeke a backup? Like right now, probably 2/3 Zeke, 1/3 Pollard. Does Pollard keep pushing and taking away from Ezekiel Elliott's snaps and end up making Elliott look like even more of an overpay by putting him at true running back too? Also look forward to how much is Tony Pollard going to get paid after this season. This is his final year under contract with Dallas. Does he re-sign with Dallas? Does he sign somewhere else? How well does he have to play to make Dallas cut Ezekiel Elliott instead and re-sign Tony Pollard for a cheaper contract? And if Zeke or Tony Pollard get injured, are any of these backups able to step up and be the number 2 back there, like Rico Dowdle, Jaquan Hardy, or do they need to sign a veteran to come in case that happens? And then will they use any of their fullbacks, which are Ryan Nall and Nick Ralston, or are they just going to be cut them or barely ever use them? So for the wide receivers, they have CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, James Washington, Jalen Torbert, Noah Brown, Femi Sehoko, TJ Vasher, Brandon Smith, Dennis Houston, Ty Frogel, and Dontario Drummond. Alright, and if you guys couldn't tell, this early into the offseason, there's a lot of names, a lot of guys won't be making these roster, but I want to at least show everyone who is on this roster and then talk about the guys I do know. So a lot of these names, especially everyone after Noah Brown, they're going to be fighting for that 6th wide receiver spot. I do believe that these will be the top 5 wide receivers unless they sign another one. Yeah, and then so will CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup be able to establish themselves as like this elite 1-2 punch even without Amari Cooper? Because CeeDee Lamb looks like he can be, but he's always had the help of not being the main focal point of the offense for the defense to like key in on. And then is Michael Gallup able to be the number 2 that he was drafted to be? And eventually he was moved down to number 3 when they drafted CeeDee. And does Gallup look good this season at all, because he is going to be coming back off of a ACL injury? Can he be a number 2, or is he just this ideal number 3, just go up and get him sort of receiver? Who's going to play the slot role in 11 personnel? Last year CeeDee Lamb played about 42%, and James Washington in Pittsburgh played about 40%. So how do they break that up? Do they just kind of have a rotation there, or are they going to make one of these guys a designated slot receiver? And will Jalen Torbert push for or even take the number 3 receiver job from James Washington? Right now, it probably will be Washington just because he's the veteran and has more experience under his belt. And Torbert is coming from the University of South Alabama, so that jump from there to the NFL is going to be a big one. So how long does it take him to be able to step up to the competition and be a number 3 wide receiver, or is he just going to stay as a number 4 for the whole year? And then does anyone else on this depth chart make any noise? As I said, I expect Noah Brown to be the one to make the roster. He has the most experience out of these guys. But will any of these guys make the roster? And if they do, are they going to be anything other than gunners or a punt returner or something like that? Like, will they actually be able to make noise for this roster? All right, for the tight ends, they got Dalton Schultz, Jake Ferguson, Jeremy Sprinkle, and Sean McKeon. How does Dalton Schultz play this year? He's playing on the franchise tag, so does he have another good season? Last year he broke out for 800 yards, 8 touchdowns. Does he capitalize off that and get the bag either from Dallas or another team? And how does 4th-round pick Jake Ferguson out of Wisconsin, does he play good enough to be like, hey, we don't really have to pay Dalton Schultz because we have this Jake Ferguson guy sitting in the wings? And then does Jeremy Sprinkle or Sean McKeon, do they do anything significant other than just being like a little tight end 3? Are they able to be tight end 2s? I know Jeremy Sprinkle had all this hype, I think former 3rd-round pick for Washington. And does he show that he has the skill set to be a number 2 so that next year they can roll with Ferguson and Sprinkle? So look up for that. Then along the offensive line, their starters project out to be Tyron Smith, Tyler Smith, Tyler Biadasz, 3 very similar names, at least first names, which is funny, Zach Martin, and Terrence Steele, with backups at tackles being Josh Ball, Levante Collins, and Mike Waltzvecchio. I'm hoping that's how you say it. Connor McGovern and Mark Farniok as backup guards, and then Braylon Jones, Alec Lindstrom, and Jamers Empey being the backup centers. So who on this offensive line steps up? There's a bunch of young guys with Tyler Smith, Tyler Biadasz, and Terrence Steele. Tyler Smith obviously being the 1st-round pick from this draft that happened just a couple weeks ago. Then Biadasz and Steele entering year 3 for them. How do they look? Does anyone surprise as being better than just this average? Biadasz and Steele have been kind of like average to below average so far, and then Tyler Smith obviously coming in as a rookie. We'll have to see how his baseline level of play is, and do they grow at all throughout the season? Does Tyler Biadasz take the year 3 jump? Does Terrence Steele look good enough to keep him out of tackle, or is it going to be smarter to move Tyler Smith to tackle and Connor McGovern to step up at guard? Zach Martin, does he continue to be a rock? Does he get injured at all this season? And also Tyron Smith, he's dealt with a lot of injuries throughout his career, especially recently, and he's not getting any younger. If he goes down, what do they do? Do they throw in Josh Ball, Levante Collins, or Matt Waltzvecchio? Or do they put Tyler Smith out at tackle and McGovern up to guard? All right. And then for their Dallas's interior defensive line, they have Carlos Watkins, Neville Gallimore, Osa Odigizua, Tristan Hill, Quinton Bohanna, John Ridgway, Austin Faoliu, and Josiah Bronson. Pretty much when I look at this group, it's a bunch of young guys drafted in mid to late rounds. And are any of them going to be able to step up? Like, they're all either unproven at this point or just flat out not good, like haven't been what's been expected of them. Are they going to roll in without signing a veteran? Like, I feel like this is a group that could use someone like Akeem Hicks, Linval Joseph, Sheldon Richardson, and Dominican Sue. They're all available still. Sign one of them, bolster this interior defensive line, because, yeah, as I said, right now, it's a bunch of year 2, 3, 4 guys who were like, oh, yeah, like, this is my 2nd, 3rd-round pick. Down the line, they're going to develop, and so far they haven't. Are they betting on that they will, or are they just like, nah, like, this is best we're going to be able to do? All right, for edge defenders, DeMarcus Lawrence and Dante Fowler are going to be most likely the base down starters. I didn't include Micah Parsons here, but he will obviously be playing edge. I'll talk about him more in the linebacker section, though. You also got Terrell Basham, Sam Williams, Dorrance Armstrong, Chauncey Golston, Big Cat Bryant, and Mike Tafua. So my questions for this group is will Demarcus Lawrence bounce back from injury and be back into the Defensive Player of the Year conversation? Like last year, he was out a lot and didn't quite look the same. But for the past like 4 years, he's been consistently okay. Like maybe he's a Defensive Player of the Year. I don't think he's. I mean, obviously he's never been really like a finalist for it, but he's gotten his name in the conversation at some point throughout the past couple of seasons. So does he get back to that form? How does Dante Fowler look now that he's reunited with Dan Quinn? Obviously, the first go around in Atlanta didn't go too hot. Is he going to have a bounce back here, or is he going to continue to be a first round bust, frankly? And then will Sam Williams prove to be worth the second round pick Dallas just spent on him year one, or is he going to take some time to develop if he ever does? Right now, he's a very athletic projection with a good upside, but not a lot of people thought he was going to be going in the second round. So does Dallas prove him wrong like right away, or is this going to be something down the line that they're planning on? And then do backups like Terrell Basham or Dorrance Armstrong play well enough to allow Micah Parsons to be more of a linebacker than an edge, and allow Dallas to use that flexibility that Parsons offers? Like instead of being like, oh, our edge defenders suck, so we have to put Parsons out there, can Dallas be like, oh, let's use Parsons as a weapon to take advantage and put him on the edge now because we want to, not because we have to? And when Michael Parsons does play along the edge, does he get a lot of snaps there again this year? And if so, can he repeat off of what was just a historic rookie season rushing the passer? All right, so for the linebackers, Micah Parsons, we were just talking about. I'll talk more about him as a linebacker now. And Leighton Vander Esch are going to be the two main ones. You also got Jabril Cox, Devontae Bond, Luke Gifford, Devin Harper, Damone Clark, and Story Jackson. So how does Micah Parsons look in year two? Does he continue to be this like elite linebacker and pass rusher, or does he return to being like specialized as either like one or the other? Does he play a lot more linebacker than edge, or a lot more edge than linebacker this year? Do offensive figure out how to take advantage of him, like how to neutralize him and force him to just be one thing or the other? Does Leighton Vander Esch return to form in contract year? He had an amazing rookie season and then struggled with injuries and poor performance since then. So how does he look now, like going into year 5? Right now it doesn't look like he's going to be worth a monster contract that he was at the beginning of his career, but who knows, maybe he's able to bounce back. The motivation of money and being like, hey, like this is my job on the line right now, that does wonders for some people. Let's see if it does for him. And Jabril Cox, how does he look in year 2 after being viewed as like the steal of last year's draft? A lot of people thought he was going to go in first, second round. I think he ended up, let me double check actually, third round I want to say. Not actually, he ended up going in the 4th round when a lot of people were like, oh, first, second round hype on him. So does he prove the media right, or does he prove the league right for being a 4th round pick? And then these career special team types, Devontae Bond and Luke Gifford, do they just continue to be special teams guys, or do they take step forwards, play more actual meaningful linebacker snaps, allow Parsons, as I said, to be a bit more flexible? And then they have 3 rookies in this group. That's Harper, Clark, and Jackson. How do they look if they do play? And especially with Clark, does he even see the field? Because he had a herniated disc surgery that caused him to slip all the way to the 5th round when he was probably a second, third round talent. And is this course good enough, as I said, to allow Dan Quinn to use Parsons' flexibility, or will they need to rely on him? Because right now it kind of looks a bit thin, and if Cox is able to take a step up and be a solid linebacker too, then yeah, they can use Micah in all these creative ways. But if not, they're going to have to be like, okay, like you have to be a linebacker because we don't really have anyone else. So for cornerbacks, the starters are on the outside are going to be Trayvon Diggs and Anthony Brown. Jordan Lewis will probably play the slot, and then Kelvin Joseph, Nashawn Wright, C.J. Goodwin, Deron Bland, and Kyron Brown fill out the roster as of now. How does Trayvon Diggs look? Last year he had a historic season where he finished with 11 interceptions, but he also gave up over 1,000 yards. Does he become more conservative this year and give up less yards, but also a bit less interceptions, or does Dallas believe that it's worth it for him to gamble and take those risks because those extra possessions can swing the game in a crazy way? And also, just turnover luck in general is kind of tends to fluctuate year on year out. So does he understand that and play in a more conservative way, or does he gamble and be like, no, I can still like he has truly elite ball skills, and does he gamble on himself and keep doing that? Will second round pick Kelvin Joseph take Anthony Brown's job? Brown kind of disappointed a bit last year. He was like nothing special. He was good enough, but definitely want to see more out of your cornerback too. So does Kelvin Joseph push him and take his job, or will Brown elevate his game and continue to hold him back? And then, yeah, will Jordan Lewis still be the primary slot option, or do any of these guys kick out to have Diggs, Brown, and Joseph all on the field at the same time? Jordan Lewis had like a strong start to his career, a bit down, and then is kind of has been on the back up these past couple seasons, getting a bit better and better. And then after that, is the depth of this roster like ready to step up in case of injuries, or in order to like players get some oxygen or run 4 cornerback sets? Seems like a very thin group right now, and that would be like a major concern if one of these top guys were to fall off. So for safeties, they have Malik Hooker and Jerron Kearse. And then as backups, Israel Mukuamu, Donovan Wilson, Juane Thomas, and Tyler Coyle, or Cole probably. Sorry, I don't know a lot how to pronounce a lot of these guys' last names. So is this the year where Malik Hooker finally lives up to his potential? He was a former first-round pick out of Ohio State, top 15 pick. Was seen as this elite, rangy, center fielding type of safety, really good in the cover 3 system, which is where he is now in Dallas. But does he realize that potential under year 2 under Dan Quinn, or is he going to struggle again and be like, okay, like he just doesn't have it? Because right now there's still maybe you can unlock that potential, but so far we haven't seen it. How does Jerron Kearse look in his second year as a full-time starter? Does he build off of his career year 6 as he goes into year 7, or as a bit of an older guy, obviously not like super old, but was that his peak right there, and he's just going to stay at it and eventually steadily decline? And then similar to what I said about their cornerbacks, there's just not a lot of depth here. So if one of those guys gets injured, or if they want to run 3 safety sets, like who's going to be the guy to step up? Yeah. And then for their special teams, right now their battle for kicker is between Chris Nager and Jonathan Garibay. I don't know who's going to win that. Like, both young guys, Nager is in year 2, while Garibay is a rookie. So, see who wins it between those two. And then Brian Anger is a longtime punter in the NFL, one of the better ones in the league. Jake McQuady, he's a long snapper. I'm not going to give long snapper analysis. But, yeah, going to be an interesting special teams group with a really young kicker, but then also a super veteran punter. So at the end of each little like roster breakdown, these videos are going to be pretty quick. There's maybe like only 20 minutes or so. But I'm going to give kind of like my pessimistic and then optimistic outlook on the season. Obviously, I plan on something in between what I'm about to say to happen. And at the end of all the 32 of these videos, that's when I'll give my win totals and do an overall season preview, and then a playoff preview too. I'll also talk about the biggest strengths and weaknesses that I see of this roster right now. And yeah, so the pessimistic outlook of the season, I think their floor as a team obviously is like an 8-9 win team. They're just too talented to go too much below that. But some things that can go wrong for Dallas include like Ezekiel Elliott. He continues to struggle, and Tony Pollard isn't able to be the number 1 running back. CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup, they're better as number 2, number 3 wide receivers. They're unable to step up and be the dynamic 1-2 punch that people are hoping that they can be. Dallas's offensive line has been regressing since like 2016, where they're like, oh my gosh, this is the best offensive line in the league, and it continues to just get worse and worse. They deal with injuries. the guys who were really good are just getting older and more hurt, and the guys who they're plugging in are just inexperienced and need a lot of development. Dak Prescott, because of this, is unable to like elevate all those around him and continues to be like, okay, like maybe he's like a top 12 conversation quarterback, but no one really takes him seriously as this top 5 tier 2 type of guy anymore. On defense, the depth at edge and linebacker forced Parsons to be used as like a band-aid to cover weaknesses instead of like a strength to take advantage of. Their interior defensive line continues to struggle. They don't really show much development against the run and the pass, and they just get gashed there. And the secondary is unable to produce the same amount of turnovers as they did last year, but they continue to give up the big yardage, and their depth is just a problem. Mike McCarthy continues to look like the wrong hire for head coach, and Kellen Moore can't elevate this offense. And Dan Quinn regresses and starts to look back like how he did with the Falcons instead of last year with the Cowboys. Yeah, so I don't think obviously all those things are going to happen, but if the season does go off the rails, those are kind of why I could see it happening. And then same with this optimistic viewpoint. These are things that I could see happening. I don't think all of them will, but some of them will, some of them won't. And if all of them do happen, I can see them getting up to like a 12-win team. Obviously, like any team can go more than this, but I don't really, like if all this optimistic stuff does come true, they're going to be like undefeated because obviously I'm saying everything good does go good. But because I don't think that's happened, I don't think they win more than 12 games. So my optimistic view is a 12-5 season. And some of the things that could go right is Ezekiel Elliott does look back in form as like this top 5 running back, and Tony Pollard is just the perfect spell back for him. CeeDee Lamb establishes himself as one of the top receivers in the league and a true number 1. And Michael Gallup is like, okay, yeah, this guy's a serious number 2, kind of like Chris Godwin and Michael Thomas. The young players on the offensive line are all either good or great, like Biadasz and Terrence Steele are at least like average, and Tyler Smith looks like one of the steals of the draft. And everyone else remains healthy. Zach Martin and Terrence Smith remain healthy and play as good as they always do. With all this, Dak is able to continue like his hot start that he always has, and establish himself as a bona fide top 5 quarterback. Dallas's edge group and linebackers are good enough, solid, and allow Dan Quinn to use Micah Parsons freely and take advantage of his unique skill set and continue to look like the second coming of LT. And the secondary remains healthy, and they have a solid balance of turnovers and yards allowed. Mike McCarthy is a CEO-type head coach that rallies a troop, and Kellen Moore and Dan Quinn continue to impress as coordinators and look like top head coach candidates. So I do my little pessimistic and optimistic win total projection before looking up the over-under for the teams. And it just so happened that the over-under is set like right in the middle of it. And I think that's like a really dead-on 10.5 wins. If I was betting, I wouldn't bet that because I think they're going to finish just around that like 10-11 win mark. And their biggest strength right now, I view as their offensive skill positions, their wide receivers, running backs. They could have one of the best 1-2 punches at wide receiver, and they got some young talent there that could develop as and be number 3s. 2 solid tight ends, as long as Dolchich, of course, or Ferguson, hits, and then 2 solid running backs. And then their biggest weakness is their secondary. As I said, definitely not a lot of depth. And even their starters, like, is Trayvon Diggs really good, or did he just get lucky with some interceptions? We're going to see that question get answered this year. And then Anthony Brown or Kelvin Joseph, like, are they going to be a solid number 2, or is that just going to be a glaring weakness? And then their secondary, Malik Hooker and Jerron Kearse, they're both, like, good, not great, like, average. And are either of them able to step up and be a bit better? So yeah, that's pretty much what this series is going to be. I'm just going to go through the roster position by position like that, say the names, and say what I am looking forward to watching and finding out as the season goes on. Obviously, I'm not like this NFL expert. I'm not going to go down and be like, oh yeah, this guy's like the 8th best quarterback in the league, and I'm gonna die on that hill, and he is gonna produce like this. This is what I'm predicting. No, I'm gonna instead be like, yeah, I wanna see how is Dak Prescott gonna play. Is he gonna be able to establish himself as a top 5 quarterback because he's shown that, or is he gonna be like, oh no, like he is in this Ryan Tannehill, Derek Carr, Kirk Cousins sort of tier. If you're on YouTube, leave a like, comment, subscribe. If you're on Apple Podcast or Spotify, leave a review. Those all help me out a lot. You can reach out to me at FPF_podcast at Twitter or Forward Progress Football Podcast at gmail.com. You can also follow my personal Twitter at Zach Party or my Instagram at Zach Party. And I will see you guys all in the next episode where I break down the New York Giants. Thank you.